Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Civil Gore Podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we have a shorter, well, not really short in time ways, but just a kind of a micro episode because it's just going to be featuring a big interview and a tiny first chop just to go over, to catch everybody up because I had went to the Winchester Mystery House haunt that they have here for the first time. Now that I'm, of course, on the West Coast, I get to experience some new haunts and haunted attractions that I've never seen before. So, and Tim, I have not told Tim much about it yet. I sent a few pictures to our friends in our little group text feed, but really didn't say much because I want to talk about it on the show. And then what I'm going to do is post the pictures when this episode drops so that you can kind of see some stuff I discussed about it. But before that, Tim, why don't you tell everyone we got a really awesome interview.
Yeah, so after Brian tells us about his haunt experiences, we're going to run an interview we had with Ellen Adair and Stephen Pierce. Ellen plays Jamie Miller in the new zombie film Herd, and Stephen Pierce was the co-writer and director of Herd. And we had them on, and they were fantastic to talk to, really fun to talk to. We had a great time with them and a great time with the movie. I think you guys are going to like it. And before you say, just like me and Brian said, oh no, another zombie movie, this one I think does some really interesting things. It takes place in an interesting time period of the zombie apocalypse. It does some different things with the zombies. It explores some different angles that I think might surprise you. So I would definitely highly recommend you check this one out because it's a lot different from maybe what you were expecting.
Yeah, and it's true. It like truly, it's like one of these things where it's gonna like tug at your heartstrings even a little bit. You know, there's a lot of emotional connection you might get in this movie. Because, you know, what the main characters deal with, aside from the zombie, and zombie is, I'm going to put in quotes, a very loose term zombie, and you'll know what I mean when you see the film. But what the characters go through, I'm sure like everyone has experienced something similar to that at some point, whether it be as impactful as what the characters go through or something minor, or you know someone that's gone through it. So there's a lot more there, and I think, you know, Stephen as one of the writers and director did just a masterful job of presenting that, and you'll hear that in the interview. I think they're both very proud of this film, as they should be. Yeah.
So that's coming up after Brian tells us about his haunt stuff. Obviously, with October, we wanted to bring you as much haunt content as we can. I unfortunately have not been to any. Some of my haunt plans fell through. We're going to do a corn maze, but it may not be until closer to Halloween. So, but I'll let Brian talk about this one because Winchester Mystery House is one of the kind of bucket list attractions I've always wanted to go to.
Yeah, and also remember, Tim, you do have your dad's awesome party to.
That's right. Yeah, that is coming up in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Which is like, really, in all honesty, that's like my bucket list on my bucket list to come to visit Tim and do his dad's haunt and party. But so anyway, yeah. So the Winchester Mystery House. So apparently, I don't know how long they've been doing this, of course, because, you know, living in New York, I did live in California previously, and back then, the only haunted attraction I ever saw at that point, I mean, they did have, I think, Halloween Horror Nights going on probably in at Universal at that time. And Disney had their thing, and Not Scary Farm was going on. But those were big events, you know, that like, and I wasn't really on that radar of that, believe it or not, at that point. I was still in the theme parks, but I really, like, you know, and I loved horror movies, but I don't think I really had the two together. So the haunts I used to go to, these things called, the Gyro was the company that would do these haunts. And they actually had a pretty good one because they did one that I went to in an old abandoned mall. So it was really cool. Like, it had multi-levels of stuff, and you'd go into rooms, and up until that point, that was like really the coolest haunted attraction I saw. Like, I remember they had this one cool sequence, and I'll get into the Winchester one in a second. I just want to preface why I was so excited that this really cool haunt came to this area, because we're like less than 10 minutes from the Winchester Mystery House. What was great about, so I remember this one sequence in the haunt where you'd go in there and you'd go into this room, and this girl would be on the table, and she'd be screaming, and she'd she's like, oh my God, he's coming, help me. And like, you'd freak out, and all of a sudden you'd hear this chainsaw go, and, you know, you'd see like a shadow go behind this window in the back scene, and you'd all expect him to come bursting through the door. but depending on what someone stood, like the chainsaw would come like at your feet and like tap you in the ankles.
Oh, that's great.
And it was, and I remember like, oh my God, I said, that's like, I think that might be the moment when I fell in love with haunts, like with that old haunt. Let's fast forward now. I've been to many, as you know, we've been to Halloween Horror Nights and those haunts and the regional haunts, but this one is cool because of the setting alone. Now, of course, I don't need to go through the entire, I mean, everyone probably knows at least remotely some of the famed legend of the Winchester Mystery House, which on its own is awesome to go to. And they used to just do like simple flashlight tours, which I never got to do either. I think now they have lantern tours, they call them.
Oh, that
you
sounds
go through
cool.
the entire tour like with no lights on, just your flashlights and lanterns, which is kind of cool because this house is very like, you know, nook and cranny-ish. And remember the legend is that she kept building and building so that like 24/7 because she was supposedly haunted by the ghosts of the people killed by the Winchester rifle. You hear all the different stories. And like, you know, there's the part where, you know, you build the stairway that goes into the ceiling and doors that open to walls. You know, there's just all these kind of cool things which you get to see on the tour. But now, so what they did though is they made a haunt. Now you think they could have easily done like just do a haunt like on the property, you know, like build a fake up little haunt. But let me tell you, they thought this out because this entire experience starts from the moment you get on the line. And so you get on this line, and we opt for the RIP passes, which I think was less than $30 more than the actual. But I think the regular haunt is $65. I think the RIP was $90. I want to say, you know, plus the fees or whatever. But and that includes now there are basically 2 haunt paths you can take. With the $65, you only get one, and that's it. Whichever one they send you now.
Okay.
This one gets the second one, so automatically for me, I'm like done.
Yeah.
Also, of course, gets you expedited, entry. You know, so you're not waiting on a long line. Even though you wait on a line, because I feel like everybody did this haunt. And Julie's like, well, yeah, when you make it that small of an amount of an upgrade,
Yeah, everybody's gonna do the
right?
VIP.
But that doesn't even include all of it, right? Not only do you get that, you get one free alcoholic drink.
Okay.
Like with that. And a signature lanyard and a souvenir t-shirt of it, which I showed you, Tim, which was an awesome t-shirt.
It was a cool t-shirt, yeah.
Yeah. So you get all that stuff like included in it. And it was like, to me, that was like such a no-brainer for the little bit of extra amount you get, right?
Yeah. Well, obviously.
So,
yeah.
So when I say it starts on the line, like starts on line, right? And it's like, you know, it's just funny because like literally if you look the direction of the mystery house, you get like all these cool lights and this kind of cool ambiance and this feeling that it's like you're transported back in time. But if you look across the street, you see like this giant high-tech mall called Santana Row, which is like the ultimate of commerce. It's kind of funny. So don't look that way. Just look towards the Winchester Mystery House. But while you're online, like waiting to go in, like they have these characters that come in, like this like old-timey newspaper guy comes and he's like writing down, he's like, hey, so you hear about the and he's staying in character, so he's already talking about the party that you're invited to.
Oh, that's
the
fun.
thing. Yeah, so he's right off the bat going, hey, you know, what are you looking for here? You got to be careful, I heard there's some ghosts in there, you know, like really into character, and he's interacting with people, and they encourage people, you could dress up in old-timey Victorian gear, which there were a couple people that did that.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I don't own that, so I'm sorry. I didn't have anything. I think I just wore my I actually wore my Halloween shirt that we picked up. Remember those $5 shirts we picked up in New Jersey Horror Con?
Yeah.
I had the one with Laurie Strode. I took that one. I wore that one that night just to be in theme. And then Charlie Chaplin actor comes by because it's that time period, so he comes in and he starts doing stuff, and the guy's trying to interview Charlie Chaplin, of course, who doesn't speak. So he's just doing they're doing all kind of wacky stuff, and they're kind of joking around with everybody. So then what you do is once you get in there, you go in there and you're in the, what they call the, I'm going to read to you the thing. So it says, here's the thing. It says, you were invited. It says, Miles and Flora Taylor, an esteemed Hollywood couple, have taken residence in the, residence of the infamous Winchester Mystery House and extended you an invitation to the grandest housewarming event of the century. But beware, as the night progresses, a mysterious air settles in, revealing that there is more to the gathering than meets the eye. So that's your invitation. That's what the theme is of this event. So that's why when you're showing up, from the moment you show up, that's what it's like. Like imagine like, like the royals holding there would be press, there would be celebrities, and
Right.
that's what you're getting right from the line, beginning of the line.
That's cool.
Then you walk in, and it's the lavish garden party. So it says, the festivities of the night commence with Miles and Flora's lavish garden party as the sun sets and darkness surrounds the estate. And we went at 9 o'clock. We had the night because it was already dark, and lights it was glows and really cool scenery. It was really awesome. It says, you will be drawn into a world where the line between reality and imagination blurs. Prepare yourself, as once you cross the threshold, there is no turning back. Now, this lavish garden party is filled with like actors walking around again in the Victorian garb. There's a stage where they do like a little performance that like the newspaper guys walking around. I think the characters, like the main characters, are there at some point, walking around, but they kind of, I think, saved them in for the haunt. Then you go in, there's a little bar area two bars where you can actually cash in your free drink. And of course they were highly themed, and they had little blinky ice cubes in it, reminiscent of Halloween Horror Nights, kind of thing. There was little snacks and hors d'oeuvres you can buy. Then there's also a little, like, since it's a garden party, they set up these little carnival games, which is really cool.
Oh,
which
that's
you would have
cool.
like flipped
Yeah.
out. Yeah, Tim, you would have loved this part. And it had like, there was, and one of the things when you walked in, they handed out little candy cigarettes, because everyone smoked at that time. So
yeah.
they gave you a little box of candy cigarettes when you got your drink. So
That's
you could
great.
walk around with like those little fake cigarettes. I mean, that alone to me like blew me away. I was like, you can imagine how excited I was to actually get into the haunt with all this. So, but some of the things they had this weird rope game where you had 2 ropes, and you'd pull on either side, and you had to bring this ball up.
Oh,
all the way to
yeah.
the top.
I've
You ever
seen
see those?
the Corn Maze has that.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, and they had fake axe throwing. They have real axe throwing there, but they also had fake axe throwing, where it's like rubber and it like sticks with like Velcro.
Mhm.
So you have to throw that. They have like a ball toss where you have to knock over those little ghost people like you see at any theme park. They had a skee ball type game where you had to roll in. They had a bowling ball. Remember those theme parks where you had to roll the bowling ball over the hump and it has to stay between the hump?
Oh, yeah.
They have like a little version of that with like a little skee ball kind of thing. They even have a tarot card reader tent that could read your fortunes and stuff if you want.
Oh, that's cool.
All kind of cool stuff, yeah. So then eventually when you're all done, you're walking around and they give you a ticket. This really cool old, I'll take a picture of that too. It's like this old fancy little ticket thing. Very time period-esque. And when you're supposed to go meet back to get into the haunt. So you go in there, and the first theme of the first walkthrough thing was the wedding of this couple kind of thing going on. And actually, let me read to you the official thing there. So the haunt. This is the official thing from Winchester. It says, a seemingly innocent home purchased by a curious couple conceals a haunting nightmare. As they settle in, strange occurrences begin to unravel as the ghosts of former residents make their presence felt. Prepare yourself for a descent into madness as the spirits will lead you deeper into the twisted past. Will you dare confront what lurks within the halls of the home? So yeah, you go in there, and the first thing is kind of like this, almost reminds me of Little Haunted Mansion-esque, where there's like this, basically you find out through the storyline. I don't want to give too much away, but basically there's some infidelity involved, a revenge plot kind of thing, if you can imagine where I'm getting to. A little supernatural twist between the scorned bride and the evil husband kind of thing. And it's really cool because you go in there and this is amazing. And I saw a review that said this too, and it really was. The line, they kind of let you in, but they space it out so perfectly. You hear other people throughout the building, but the way the Winchester Mystery House is set up with really tight corners to begin with, you don't see anybody else. So it's like you're pretty much your group by yourself.
That's
going
cool,
in there.
yeah.
Yeah, so you encounter a couple, and there's not a ton of scare actors in there. But they're like, when you do see them, they put on like full sketches for you, like full in character. Like there was one we started leaving in the middle of it, and then so we felt bad. So the next one we stayed at, and we realized I think we overstayed the welcome because we think she started to ad lib. It was kind of funny, but very elaborate sequences when you go into the different spot, and it's in the actual Winchester Mystery House, so it's already creepy as hell. And you're going in these winding things, and there's one spot where you have to go down below into this boiler room area where they force you to put on a hard hat because you're in such tight quarters and there's piping and you have to avoid things as you're going in. And and a couple of things are, a couple of typical haunt things that you see at places. Like there's the the bridge that kind of like feels like it's collapsing under you. There's that like thing where it's like a dark room, but this green light shoots at you, so it kind of disorients you with smoke. So it looks like you can't tell where you're going, but you see this green, so you just follow the green light. Did you ever see that at some of these haunts?
Yeah, I saw one there where they did something like that, but it had fog, and like somehow they made fog that was like waist deep, so you couldn't really see where you're walking. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, but it got like what it is. It got higher, so it got like in there. So there's a lot of like really. I'm telling you, if you're claustrophobic, this is not the haunt for you, because there's. When I say tight quarters, I mean like literally, like you can barely fit. I am not a tall person, and I had to like duck in spots. It's, but like the story unfolds so great, and there's not like it's like there's like a lot of areas that aren't touched with things, but it doesn't need to, because it's the Winchester Mystery House. It's already got that cool gothic creepiness to it. So they actually played on. They did it very strategically, but when you got into the sequences that you needed to be, they were so elaborate and so well done, and they spent some money on some effects. There's one effect that rivals that giant. Remember in Poltergeist haunt walkthrough?
Yeah.
With the giant creature, it like rivaled that.
Wow.
That's how good. And yeah, and so that was but that was in the second part of the haunt. So after you're done with the first haunt, you go out, and your final thing before you leave, they have a jump scare camera, which I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm just going to tell you there's an effect there that jumps out, and while you're jumping up, it takes a picture of you. So as soon as you walk out, hey, would you like to buy your photo of you getting scared? And that, which I thought was pretty brilliant. We actually bought the picture. Well, actually, my sister-in-law did, because it was kind of funny, because it was the second time around we knew it was coming. So we kind of made a funny pose. But then when you walk out there, before you go into the second part of the haunt, you go into through a scare zone where they have those sliders that people come around.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
some people that come and chase you, some people that'll creep up behind you, and then you go into the middle sequence where you can pick up your souvenir shirt. You can pick up another drink if you want to buy. You want to get some other stuff, things like that. And then you can go right back into the haunt, or you can we checked out the Halloween Museum, which is, I'll show you some pictures of, which is like really old, like every Halloween thing you can imagine from like the 70s on. Like there's like old candy boxes and cereal boxes. And
I would love that.
Oh, Tim, I'm going to send you the pictures ahead of time. I'll send it to you now after I've told you. You would have died. It was so cool. Like, I would have spent more time in there if it wasn't like we wanted to kind of get through everything, But really cool little Halloween museum. And then you go back into the second haunt, which is, again, a little shorter. The second one was definitely shorter, the first one. But the overall experience, they tell you you're going to be spending there at least 2.5 hours there. Like for the whole process, because then when you come out, then you go back in through the gift shop and stuff like that, and you can get all kind of cool merch. Like Winchester, it's their 100th anniversary, so there's a lot of cool things. I was trying to look for something cool for you, but I couldn't find anything. Like I'm like, you know what though, I kind of want Tim to like be able to experience. You're gonna come out, and that's one of the things we're gonna do
right
when you're here is do the Winchester. So I figured you'll just pick up your own like cool thing. But I think I have an extra lanyard for you. Julie didn't want her lanyards. I think I might have an extra cool lanyard for you. But yeah, so it was really, really amazing stuff there. And it's just so cool the way they did it, because it was, the whole thing was like from the moment you got out of your car onto the line, you were immersed in the story. Like next year, like I think I may like buy an outfit to get really into it. Like that's because this is something I can see myself doing every year, because each year it's the same thing called Unhinged, but with a different plot. Like, but kind of using the same, of course, the same haunt area, but they probably like they theme it to whatever the actual storyline, because I think they've been doing it for a few years now. This storyline. Oh, and one cool thing too, I've got like it was theme park caliber like pre-show, because when you walked in, they had this like little movie you watched that got projected. This like lady came out and first spoke to you, and then she said, please watch this, and she like it made it look like this thing was projecting onto the wall, and it was like almost like something like you'd see at the Hollywood oh my god, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, but like that old Hollywood kind of thing. They show you that pre-show movie. It's like that, but like with this one lady that's like they're trying to basically show you what not to do, so she keeps doing other like no pictures, so she takes a picture out and like they grab her camera and unroll the film, like all these kind of fun little things like that. So it basically one of the most immersive like haunts I've been to, because from just everything, from the fun, like literally, I almost wish you could like spend an hour just in the garden area, like getting drinks. And I mean, I guess you could technically, if you showed up early enough, you might be able to do all that kind of stuff earlier. But just the immersiveness and the characters in there that were like fun, like you were surrounded and you felt like you didn't feel like you're in the middle of like a thing. Now, granted, I will say, poor Becky Galentine would have lost her mind, because you know how she's very big on. She hates the fact that when people like merchandise like a true story like that, and she's very, I know she's really big on Winchester stuff, and she just hates the commercialism of it. I think she would have lost her mind with some of the stuff that they were selling, like literally slapping the Winchester Mystery House on every single item you can imagine. There was a cool mug I almost grabbed for you, but I'm like, I don't know how to ship this thing. It's like, it looked like it could get damaged. So, but just every cool like thing. And there's inside the gift shop too. There's this old like cool model of the entire grounds, which is neat. So you can really see how vast and huge this property is. But yeah, if you were in the Bay Area, or even just in all honesty, California, it's worth a drive down if you want to make like a little weekend out of it to do this haunt, because it's for $95. I know that sounds steep for like a haunt, considering usually these like personal, not personal haunts, but these like. What's the word? Like
private haunts,
private haunts, or like singled out haunts, not like part of a park. Or usually, run you around $40-$50, so it's double that, but it's worth every penny. But yeah, I highly recommend this haunt. I'm gonna post the pictures, Tim. I'm gonna send you some ahead of time though, just so you can kind of see like the Halloween museum things. But really just an amazing thing. Tim, I'm telling you, gotta come out one year for this haunt.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to do West Coast Halloween or something around Halloween, because there's just so much cool stuff to do around there. And I did forget one thing that I might be able to do, because I think my brother wants to go, is they're doing a here in town at our old we used to have an old like Pepsi bottling plant, and it's been closed down for years, but a lot of the filmmakers that are out of work because of the strike put together a haunt, and it's going to be sort of like, I guess, kind of like what you're talking about, because it's going to be interactive, and they're going to have people from the film industry. So obviously there's going to be some very professional looking effects and stuff, and they're going to it's called Chapel of Horrors, and I think the whole storyline is like some kind of cult has taken over, and so I think there's going to be like interaction with like you're entering into this like cult place, and I don't know if they're going to have shows or they're going to have, I don't know what's going to happen.
That's awesome.
It's very little information, but it sounds like it's going to be like part haunt, part interactive theater. But I'm hoping to go to that with my brother when he gets out of his play. So I will stay tuned for that. I might have a review of that coming up. Well, here is our interview with Ellen Adair and Stephen Pierce about their new movie, Herd, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Take care, and we'll see you back here next week.
See ya!
Hey everybody, we have with us tonight Ellen Adair and Stephen Pierce to discuss their new film, Herd. Ellen plays the role of Jamie Miller, who is trying to get back home while overcoming militias and zombies. And Stephen was an editor on one of our favorite shows, Saturday Night Live, and is co-writer and director of the film. So welcome to the show, everyone.
Thank you so much for having us.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I was like, I'm waiting for Ellen. She's going to go first. So they're going to go first. And then as soon as you started, Ellen, I jumped right on top of you.
I think we were both trying to be deferential, but yes. Instead, we both talked at the same time.
And what people didn't hear before was my thing, or really the reason why we do the video on, so no one does talk over. Mostly it's me. So I feel a little better that it's not just me. But let's, of course, we want to get really into Herd, which we both absolutely loved. It's funny, too, because, one of the things is the viewers are going to, look on paper. They're thinking they're getting into the zombie film, which, in all honesty, when I saw, I'm like, oh, wow, another zombie film. But I have to tell you, this movie blew me away. It was so different than I expected. Had so much substance and heart in this thing that I was just, I told Tim, I said, wow, you got to see this. You have to watch this right away because we need to go over this. But so first, Stephen, we just want to, what can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind this?
Absolutely. I mean, Herd it's a story about, two women going on a camping trip trying to save a failing marriage, and they end up trapped between a zombie outbreak and warring militia groups. It's sort of about, the world where, it's where some people fight for survival and other people fight for control. So yeah, it's the inspiration sort of came from, I grew up in the town where we filmed this movie in rural Missouri. And I've since lived in St. Louis and London and New York for 15 years. And so for me, I sometimes feel like I don't really belong here because I'm still like kind of a country person, viewed by all the people around me. But then when I go home now, I don't fully fit in there either. So that was sort of the beginning of an idea that we were working with for the character Jamie, somebody that runs away from all of their traumas rather than trying to face them.
Yeah, and what was so interesting too about that is because, like I said, it's like on paper people are going to pick this up as a zombie film, but really it is so much more. I mean, there's how to deal with your past. There's a love story in there. There's just so many things going on, and that's why we had to ask that question, because I'm like, this is such a good take on this. It's because you've seen. How many zombie films have you seen out there? And this one is like, and I feel bad even just saying, oh, it's a zombie film, because it's just what I know it's going to be, referred to as out in the, when first viewed. But I hope people like see this and really get into this, because it's such an amazing film.
That's awesome, man. Now, I mean, it's a danger, right? Because it's easy to put to be a film that people want to watch. I mean, same for me. You got to almost fit in a box. Like, you got to be a thing. And sometimes I worry, you worry that the box is, it's a fine box. I love the box, but we have I think our box is like pretty deep. But if you just glance at it at the surface, it might get that reaction of like, oh, another zombie movie, which is, that's not an unfair take,
But when I first read this movie, which was in 2021, I mean, I fell so deeply in love with it. I've said many times, but it bears repeating, that my thought when I read it was, I would die to do this movie as long as I can do the movie first and die afterwards. And the good news is that it looks like things are on track for that to have happened. So one of the things that I responded to really strongly, I mean, I responded very strongly to the character of Jamie in general, but I also responded to the fact that I mean, I'm a fan of horror movies as well, and I have done a number of them, and I really love working in the genre. But I responded to how thoughtful the script was, and how much it seemed to me to be like the best horror films, not just a horror movie, which is great and fine, but also really like a psychological picture of our society right now. And that there's so much in it that comes out of, I think, the sort of collective experience of 2020. This is not remotely a movie about COVID, but since they are virus-based zombies instead of being undead zombies, I think the kind of like panic and paranoia that comes from like that the other person can infect you with something is obviously a huge part of this script. And I think also then something, that I think we saw in this country, that you might think that some huge cataclysmic event like a global pandemic would bring everybody together and cause everybody to recognize their shared humanity in the face of this onslaught of a disastrous event, basically kind of caused the opposite. And I mean, I think that is not universally true. There are countries where people really came together. And so I do think that says something about the way that divisiveness has been sown and weaponized in this country, and the kinds of responses that human beings have to an event like this. And so I think that's what makes something like this, that is not depicting exactly what happened in any way, like it's not about that, but it is a kind of like mirror up to nature, so that we can, in our kind of imaginative space, work through where we're at.
So that leads right into my next question, Ellen. That was well said, because that was a surprising outcome of the pandemic, is how polarized everybody was, and kind of a disappointing outcome, because I think we all thought kind of that it would be the opposite, that we would come together. But can you tell us a little bit? My next question was about your character Jamie. Can you tell us a little bit about the character and how you approach the role?
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question. In some ways, as soon as I read the script, I just felt like I knew where she lived and I knew where she lived in me. And I don't know, I think there are a number of reasons for that. You know, I too have spent a lot of my life living in the Midwest, but I live on the East Coast now. And so I think that that I perhaps recognized, I didn't know Steve at the time, but I recognized that kind of the tension of those two parts of the country existing in a single person. But I also think that something that really resonated in Jamie to me is her really, I think, blend of masculine and feminine qualities, and that I felt like that resonated very much for me, at least personally. You know, I identify as non-binary, and I really felt like rather than an idea of what that is, it really felt like I just could see my own self in literally in like what she does and in how she interacts with the world. And then I also think, I mean, she's a dream character. There's so much going on for her in terms of processing the trauma that she has from her father. Her mother died when she was young, and her father kicked her out because she was queer. And also in terms of kind of dealing with her marriage and dealing with the this is not a spoiler at the beginning of the film. Jamie and her wife Alex have lost a child, and so I think dealing with the trauma of that, but also Jamie processing like her own relationship to her father in that, and whether or not she ever really wants to be a parent. There's so many threads, there's so many things going on for Jamie in every single scene that it's just, yeah, it's a complete actor's playground. It's just a dream to have a character that is so multi-layered in that way.
We've been seeing a lot more LGBTQ themes in horror recently, but I could not remember that being explored in a zombie film. Certainly not one that I've seen, and I thought it was really, really interesting. It added another angle to this movie that kind of sets it apart from a lot of other zombie films that we've seen. So,
Yeah, and I think it's so, to me, it's so crucial that it's a queer story at the center of the film, that it is I think a queer love story in a zombie movie, because I think that so much of the movie is about, you know, we've talked about this already, but essentially divisiveness, about a sort of us versus them mentality, and all of the different ways in which one group of people will dehumanize another group of people, or just say like they're different and we don't get them, and that's them over there and we're us over here. And so I think that is it's thematically important to the film. It's not just sort of like it happens to be that.
Yeah, I've next question is for Stephen, but I do want to reiterate Tim sentiment, how just outstanding you were in that, Ellen, because you were I feel like you had a lot of baggage through, that you had to deal with this movie, and it does, like, you do find out about the loss of the child right on, but then you find out through the course of the film. I don't want to give the spoilers on the different elements, but you actually see what your character kind of like is going through, just in your expressions and in some of the way you deliver the dialogue. And I think that really makes that work so well as just an extra level, because it's so powerful. I think your performance. I just wanted to make sure I got that.
You're absolutely right. They are an amazing performer. One of the best I've ever worked with, and a true pleasure to get to do anything with. I mean, anytime Ellen wants to read anything ever, I'll be there to point a camera at it.
You're the best, Steve. Steve also gives the best direction. I think that I already was so excited to work on this movie, but I feel like Steve got a truly exceptional performance out of me personally, but I also think I saw him do the same for other people in the cast. So I similarly would do anything with Steve if Steve wants to. I know that there aren't even phone books anymore, but if Steve wants to direct the phone book, I'm also there.
So it's funny you said that. I just heard some, I don't know what, I was listening to another podcast where they mentioned the phone book, and they're like, well, you probably, any of our young listeners don't know what a phone book is. I said, oh God, that's just making me feel too old. I remember having the phone book. I said, what does that make me? But
Steve can direct me doing Google search results.
there we
That's
go.
what I was
That
about to
makes me
say.
feel a
What
little
is-
I
better.
gotta update that.
What is
saying,
the
yeah.
equivalent nowadays? Is it reading
Yeah.
the transcript of a Joe Rogan podcast? You know.
Yeah, I
Oh
like. Yeah, I like
God,
the
no,
Google.
maybe not that.
Yeah, maybe not that one. Yeah. But so Stephen, this was one I want to ask you. So the time period of this film, I feel we've both felt was very interesting because most of these zombie type of films, you're usually witnessing the events of the films like months or years after the whole thing where people are starting to turn into things. And this film seems to take place much earlier in the timeline, kind of when Law and Order just first starts to break down, before the infection really is completely taken over. So can you talk about a bit about the decision to place the events in that particular phase of the infection?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with sort of one of the sub themes of our film is a certain subgenre of people that are really ready to war, and willing to almost looking for their opportunity for one reason or another. And we sort of touch on that in a few different ways. There's a few generational elements to it, but I think that plays a big part in it. Also, this is sort of in a response to, the way reactions can be to major events. Some people will, we refer to it quite a bit in the script and in the film of, the governor's telling you to do one thing, and because the government is saying one thing, it pushes a certain type of person to immediately want to do something else. And that just, I think that all sort of plays a point in that story. I don't think these characters exist that honestly without a timeline like that. Like if you'd had something that was 20 years, 30 years post-apocalyptic, I don't think you could tell this particular story in that setting.
That's a great point, actually, because and since we all kind of lived through something along those lines. I mean, not with the
and to be
infection,
and to be clear, I'm not trying to say that that's necessarily wrong, because God knows, we did a whole, for me, we had one of my favorite fun little Easter eggs in the film is we have the tired governor character that just appears in television screens that we modeled on a combination of a few different politicians, but one of which was Andrew Cuomo. And it just makes me laugh because we had these awful PowerPoint presentations that we designed and put in there. And it just made me, for me, every time I watch it, that's something that I will always snicker at, is because I remember watching all those stupid, awful PowerPoints, but it was what you had,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would watch those daily because I was living in New York at the time. We were in Long Island, so we were a little bit away from the city, but I had friends in the city, I had family in the city, so it was, and to see that, you're right, every day he'd go up there, and I remember and it was the same thing as no matter what he did up there, either you'd have people that were cheering him on, half the people would criticize him. I remember I guess it was when masks were scarce, and he decided to take I guess he put all these masks in a mural behind himself, and everyone's so then as soon as you see it, people jumping on him. Well, wait a minute, I thought you needed masks. Why is he wasting them on the thing? And I'm like, oh my God, he literally just set it up for the thing, and he's going to distribute them after, but it's it's the same. I totally get what you mean. It's you can't that is what you had there. You had those and everything with the curb, you'd see the lineup, and it would just be ticking up this way, then it would tick down, tick that. So I did get that I did like that Easter egg in there, because it was while it's a little bit oh God, I don't want to go through that again, but it did make sense for the point of the film. That's actually 100%.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that's one of the little things. We started writing this in January 2020, so it was before this all started, and then COVID all happened and everything, and it just sort of the world kept piling little life experiences on us that we kept kind of finding a way to weave in without trying to make it about that. It is definitely not a COVID film in my mind at all. It has nothing to do with that. We are virus based, zombies in our world. They're called HEPs. It's but that's as close as we get, is that it is an infection based disease.
Yeah, I did like that it was infection based more than it gives it more of a realism, I think, and which helps with the other major themes in the movie, that it's okay, this not only could happen, this kind of is what's happening, especially with the Ellen, your character's journey through it. So
yeah, that was really cool. I like the setting, because I've watched as you can imagine, me and Brian watch a lot of zombie movies.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And you know, you do see that most of the time. It's either when everything's completely gone to hell or when it's just starting. But it's kind of neat to see one that's kind of set a little bit in between those two extremes, where you know you're kind of just starting to get the breakdown of society, but before everything's really gone completely haywire. So I really like that part of the movie. This next one is for Ellen. I was originally going to ask more about the LGBTQ themes, but I think we kind of touched on that earlier. So I'm going to give you a little more of a fun question, because I know you're an avid reader, you're a writer, and you're big into baseball. So I want to give you a little chance to kind of spill on all your other hobbies outside of acting.
Oh, okay. I was like waiting for a trivia question or something
No,
like
no
that.
trivia. Just I'll just let you.
I've got one. I got a
In
trivia question for you.
1974, who was the third base? No.
No, even better one. And I bet you know this one. What is the first line of Ulysses without looking? It's her favorite novel. Well, while they think about it.
I
While
mean,
they think about it.
I know it starts stately plump Buck Mulligan, but I don't remember.
Close enough. Whatever the hell you said, I have no idea what it was. But it was so many syllables that I was starting to get bored, which is perfect for Ulysses.
Yeah, when you said trivia, all I could think of is that scene in City Slickers. I don't know if you guys all saw that movie, but when he's where Helen Slater's character, like, all you guys are a bit about baseball. Like, you only know like the third baseman for the 1975, and they're like, but all three yell it at the same time.
It happens to me all the time because I'm like, you know, observably a woman, and so people are always like, "Do you really know baseball? All right, tell me which 5 Hall of Fame pitchers have felony convictions." And I'm like, "What?" I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, nor do I really care to.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an actual example of like I was speaking at a baseball conference and somebody came up to me afterwards like, if you really know baseball, you're gonna know this anyway. Tim, thank you very much for your kind question. Yes, I have been I'm working on a few different novels. I have completed drafts of a couple. One of them is sort of ties into the LGBTQ theme in that the titular character at least is non-binary, and I've had great fun working on that. And I've also recently started a TikTok, and this is perhaps where Stephen was asking his Ulysses question, where I have been reading from my favorite books and talking about them, because for a long time I was like, what could I possibly contribute to TikTok as a person who has been old since I was born? And I was like, oh, some people talk about books on TikTok, I can totally do that. So yes, if that sounds like your jam, please look me up on TikTok.
Well, I think we have a TikTok, and it's literally one video of Tim doing that, but about a Blu-ray or something. Yeah, and that was
exactly
our bold plan. We had plans for TikTok, but Tim and I are older, and we don't. We're not as hip. I guess we can't pull that off. But I did see a funny video you did where I think it was I don't know if it was on TikTok or Instagram. It was titled when cheering like a sports announcer would, or you yell out like, you know, oh, like the bases are empty, but I'd like them half full or something. I thought that was really funny. So obviously you have a great sense of humor along with your vast knowledge and of books and baseball there. So.
Well, yes, I appreciate that. That was for an article, a series of articles that I wrote about how to make your cheering more interesting, because I'm really tired of people just being like, "Yo, Wheeler, you suck," and I'm like, objectively, he doesn't suck. Like no. You know, like
I've heard that when he was
Cy
with the
Young
Mets,
running, he should have won the year that Corbin Burns won. Like, he throws 99, he's got a filthy slider. Anyway, he doesn't.
You're killing me. The Mets had him and they got rid of him.
I know. Why do you think I chose that?
Look, they're everyone's getting all like digging the Mets at me. I tell you today. Oh,
well, I know absolutely nothing about baseball, so I'd be the worst person in the world to start asking trivia questions. I know zero. I don't watch it. Not that I no dislike. That's not that I have a dislike for it or anything. I'm just not. I've just never gotten into it, or hockey. To Brian's chagrin.
Yeah, we did. We just funny. We had when the Rangers played the Hurricanes last year. That we did have a funny the Civil Gore. We called it the Civil Gore series. which neither one of us paid good on. I think we're supposed to buy each other a case of beer, but we usually, whenever we get to actually see each other, we usually just keep buying drinks for each other anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, Tim's more into, I think, what are you? Your college basketball is really.
I'm a college
right?
basketball guy. Yeah. Definitely. That's the only sport I've ever really
Who's
watched.
your team?
I'm a Duke guy. Duke Blue
I just
Devils.
felt like I knew you were going to say Duke. I wonder why.
So
Steve is a Cardinals fan. I wouldn't say long-suffering, but recently suffering Cardinals fan. So, yes,
But it still hurts. It stings. It stings quite a lot. You know,
Yeah,
it's very
sorry.
painful.
Sorry.
Yeah. Let's say, hey, we'll
If
see.
if you look at my teams, it's the Mets, the Jets, the Rangers, and Knicks. So I've had a long
You've had a long
history
go.
of
Life.
pain.
Life. A long life.
Yes, exactly. I've seen one Met championship. I've seen one Ranger championship, and that's all I've seen out of those 4 teams. So it was too much too. I think. Well, actually, there might have. Was there a Knicks one? Maybe a Knicks one, like when I was a year old or something like that. I don't know. I'm not good at basketball. That's my least favorite.
If you're a year old, it doesn't count.
Doesn't
right?
count.
Like
Right?
that
I
wasn't
didn't think
part
so.
of your
That
emotional
doesn't count.
experience.
I
Yeah.
know it really doesn't. But when the Rangers did finally win the cup, and when I was in, I was like, I think I was 21. What was I? 22 at the time. That was pretty fun though. I was definitely old enough to enjoy that.
Good.
So, but yeah, the man. I don't know how this became. It's so funny how fast this became a sports podcast.
I was about to say, yeah. Let's. We've hijacked the episode today.
Yeah.
Let's go into Nola's spin rate. How was it in the last
Yeah.
week or so?
Well,
I mean, he looked great. He didn't get a lot of strikeouts, but he had a 30% CSW. I don't know. I mean, especially even with all those changeups that were outside the zone that were getting called. I don't know. I can't explain it. 3 strikeouts. What happened?
see that's some expert analysis. We're just gonna have to rename this podcast "Civil Score" today.
go.
I think.
There you go.
Ah.
Whoa! Dropping the
fast.
puns.
I'm good. Oh, that is a signature of our podcast.
Yeah.
If there's one signature, it's me talking too much and puns. That's
You gotta watch out
Right.
for Brian's pun game.
I
It's
feel
very
like
strong.
all the sports podcasts always end up talking about movies. So, we're just really completing the
true.
circle.
There you
You're
go.
right. We're
There you
just
go.
we're switching it. Well, well, we did include we not that you may need to know this at all, but a little sidetrack. But we also every year I don't know if you know in the horror community they do these horror challenges where you have like 31 days to watch 31 movies. Well, when our yearly one, we decided to get extra creative, and you have to claim objectives, and there were more objectives than there are movies you need to watch. So you have to be very creative or do a lot of research time. But last year I think I included like 4 sports ones you had to find. Like you had to find a horror movie that included a scene with baseball, football, or hockey. And it was exciting to try and find those. Baseball was a lot easier, I think. I think the hockey was hard. I think there were 2.
I think there's 2 hockey horror movies in existence. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
The
that was
Battery is a pretty good movie, a pretty good
I
zombie
heard
movie.
I heard you mention that on some other podcast. I don't think I knew of that back then. No, I don't think I knew that. It didn't come up when I was searching, but I want to
They
look
did
at
an
that.
amazing job with it. Yeah, it was made with a micro budget. I can't remember, but like less than $10,000 or something crazy like that.
Oh, I
And
think I
it's
saw
a
that
really
one.
good film. Yeah, I think it's really, really good. Yeah.
Right.
With
The
strong
Crazies
recommend-
has a passing baseball film in it, or baseball scene in it.
That does. I think
Yeah.
that might
The
be what I
remake.
actually used to claim.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what I used to claim the objective. Yeah. But just in case you're wondering what the hockey one was, it's called Apocalypse, which was way more enjoyable than it had any right to be. I'll tell you that.
I don't know. It's got that great pun.
It does.
I'm
Well,
ready for it.
But it's actually really good. It's a hockey zombie movie, basically. So, yeah, I definitely recommend that one. But anyway, now that we've completely sidetracked everywhere, we'll go. Well, let's get back to
Steer it back.
Steer it back here. So, this is kind of like a fun thing where you, I know both of you have kind of already mentioned your reasons why you what really drew you to this movie, what made you write it. So what, with all the zombie films out there, we want to give you both a chance to pitch to our listeners, to prospective viewers here, what your favorite thing about her that makes it stand out from the pack of all the other kind of zombie type movies.
Interesting. What about Herd makes it stand out from the zombie herd, if you will.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know what does, but
I
I want to hear
Herd
refrained
is
when I was
different.
writing that question. I refrained from saying, "How does it stand out from the herd?" I really had
Well,
to
Yeah.
restrain
I
myself.
appreciate it. But we
There's
know
that
who
pun.
brings the puns here, and I
Yeah.
had to tag in. It's like it was my only opportunity.
I think we went one too far because I saw Ellen's reactions like, oh, another pun.
Not at all. No. I'm a fan of puns. I'm not
Oh, okay.
necessarily I don't deal them out, but I do enjoy them.
Okay. And this is the podcast for you, I'll tell you.
It's an interesting question to me because like everything about it to me, we tried to build upon the lore, tried to build upon the zombie elements and add something to the, universe of zombies rather than just quote and pull from what others have done. So we used quite a few things that I love to play with assumptions, and I think we used assumptions, and that's one of my favorite things is making an audience believe it's going to be something, and then giving you something a little bit different, not necessarily the opposite, but just something you weren't quite expecting that's what it was going to be, while still feeling grounded and interesting. So I don't. The whole thing for me is we were trying to make something that felt like it belonged in one foot in the zombie lore and world, while being its own little thing. You know what I mean? Something else entirely. So, and I feel pretty successful at that. I think, I feel, there's lots of great performances in here too that I don't think you often get in a zombie movie. So that's, that little mishmash, cereal bowl of an answer is mine.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there are the answers that first come to my heart are not ones that I want to share on a podcast because I don't want to spoil some of the things that Steve was talking about in terms of setting up expectations and then not necessarily reversing them, but subverting them in some way. But I do feel like one obvious thing is just that the Heps are not like any other zombies that I have ever seen. I do not like say that I've seen every single zombie movie out there, but even of the virus-based zombie movies that I have seen, or like, HBO's The Last of Us, where I'm a fan, this is yet different. It's like a different, just a different way that they behave. And I think that is certainly something that is fun for people who are fans of zombie movies specifically. It's like, check it, new zombie just dropped. So I think that's one thing. And I mean, I also think that, the thoughtfulness of the movie, and I think actually, the compassion for its characters, and I think the big-heartedness of the movie, I think sets it apart. I don't think that I can't necessarily say that therefore it is unlike every other zombie movie that has ever existed or zombie thing, because again, I think of The Last of Us, but I think that in terms of the worldview of the film, it's not quite like the 28 Days Later films, which I love. I love those movies, but just as another sort of like virus-based movie comp. So yeah, again, I'm sort of talking around it a little bit, but that's because I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, I was worried about that because that is a bit of like you definitely do not want to give anything. I want everyone to have the same experience I did of going into it and not realizing how much substance and just great story and great characters, and like each character was more engaging than the next. I felt like, and it was, I can only, like, in all honesty, the emotional pull to this from this movie, I think there's only like one other zombie movie that and I feel bad by just calling it zombie, but it was just more for the sake of comparison.
No, we're not offended. We're not. We know what we made.
But the audience is not. They need to know how good this is. There's only like one other I think I could think of that even had to be close to the emotional like pull. So I think that's an excellent point, is because it really is it is going to stand out. And you know what? I mean, people may be listening to this and say, oh, yeah. Trust me, this is a movie that needs to be seen, and go in without any spoilers other than what we've just said.
So I want to give you guys both a chance to pitch any other projects that you're working on that you can talk about. I mean, I know, Ellen, you've talked about your novels that you're working on. Are there any other projects that you all are working towards?
I mean, I have some other writing projects. I have a screenplay that is a finished few drafts in, but still sort of polishing. That is a horror comedy, and that I have written with my husband, and also working on like a TV pilot, my second TV pilot. The first one is just like a learning experience at this point, and anything else. Just because of SAG striking, I'm just gonna kind of not talk about any other, of those kinds of projects that I have worked on in the past. Though there's other stuff that's in the pipeline. That's all I'll say.
And it's a fair point to jump in here to say that Heard, the film, does have an interim agreement with SAG-AFTRA, so our actors like Ellen are allowed to speak about it and promote it. So that's why she's able to do things like this, and we're very grateful for it, and continue to stand with with everybody. And but for me, like, now that WGA strike has ended, I had a couple of films that were circling that I potentially would come on to direct, and now hopefully those will resume. So hopefully those will be coming at some point here soon. James, my partner in crime and co-writer of Heard, James Allardyce, we've written another screenplay we're very excited about, that's already in process, and hopefully we expect it to go into production in 2024 and be out in hopefully 2025. It's definitely still a genre film. It's in the horror world. I mean, it's more of a slasher romantic comedy, so just take that with a grain of salt for a minute. But it's like Heard, has its own little heart and life to it, and we hope that that comes out, and that's a very fun thing. But other than that, I mean, Heard is on a roller coaster of a ride. We had an amazing premiere in London at Fright Fest, and I mean, God, we love the horror audience is just so fantastic, and especially the UK horror audience specifically. Oh, yeah. Man, they were fantastic. They were wonderful. We had like the IMAX like on a Saturday night with like 700 people, and they just gave us a big old hug of love from the UK. And now we're facing our premiere here this week, actually. At that time of recording, in a couple of days, we premiere at New York Comic Con.
Oh, so, I saw the ad for that. Yeah. We're trying to get our friend to go to see it, but he can't see it that day. No. Because he's going to the I think on Friday. He'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't think he can make Thursday. I told him, "Oh, you're missing out because this is going to be cool." But
it's going to be it's going to be cool. I'm sad for your friend. Thank you for like recommending it, though. That's very cool of you. You're cool. Thanks, dude. No, we're going to do that, and then we've got a bunch of theatrical screenings coming up across the country, and then also to be on VOD and for purchase on all the major platforms on Friday the 13th in October, which is pretty cool.
Nice. Nice.
So go check. Spooky Friday the 13th.
Yeah, you can you'll be able to find Heard on any of the major platforms. You also check Heard.film for your local theaters and where they will be running. It's going all across the country. We've got a bunch of fun special screenings and Q&As and stuff happening too.
Yeah, and we'll of course, we're going to make sure we promote this constantly to make sure everyone gets out there to see this. And I mean, I have to say, I know, and I can almost speak for Tim. I know him that we're like, Ellen, we are just now huge fans of you and can't wait to see all your work back.
As everybody should be. Up. They're incredible.
And Stephen, you as well. Like, I can't wait to see what you got coming up next. And I know it was fortunate you can't tell us too much, but if I see your name attached to it, it's already drawing my eyes to go see it. So if you want to take turns saying that, where can they follow you both to keep track of your careers? Like on social medias, or I guess, Ellen, you had a TikTok. You can definitely promote that.
It's so incredibly annoying because I'm like a slightly different handle on every single platform because there's like just enough other Ellen Adairs out there. So on Twitter, I am at Ellen_Adair. While that site continues to exist, I'm also on Blue Sky. That is just Ellen Adair, Blue Sky Social. I am on Instagram at Ellen Adair G, just like the letter G at the end of my name. And then on TikTok, I am at Ellen.Adair.
I'm only on Instagram.
Okay.
It's Stephen C. Pierce, and everything else I've got coming up. I mean, at least it's like herd.film is a good way to catch up with me. But yeah, Instagram, Stephen C. Pierce. It's a lot of cat photos, and we have a new baby, so that's
congrats.
generally what.
An exceptionally adorable baby, like
Oh, she's the best thing in the
95th
entire world.
percentile baby. Seriously.
That's all right. For a horror podcast, Tim and I have a mix of horror pictures, movie posters, dogs, cats. You name it. We're big animals, so yeah. It's I don't think anything at this point can you ever define anything through one Instagram account. There's going to be tons of things going on. So
yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I mean, again, it's always a treat for Brian and I to talk to people that have made films that we love, and I'm really looking forward to our listeners getting to experience this film. And of course, if you guys have anything else to promote in the future, you're always welcome back on the show.
Please, thank you. I mean, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And when you make something like this, we made it with a lot of heart and a lot of love and a lot of effort. When you make it and people watch it and even have any sort of opinion on it at all, is really it's a very gratifying experience for us and a very unique one. So thank you guys very much for taking the time and giving it so much thought.